Recorded. Guys, I want to welcome everybody. Glad you're on with us this morning. My name's Chris Doyle. I'm from Jackson, Tennessee. We're very excited. Todd and I are always excited about our Saturday morning trainings, and we've been doing these for some time, but the numbers have now gone from a small room of 25 or 30 to now into the hundreds every time we do this. So we're always excited about it. And today we have a special guest, Stephane Page. He was the #1 power ranker in the North American continent 2019. He's always in the very top for several years in a row. And I met Stephane about 7.5 years ago, and his story is just absolutely amazing. And I want him to start with that. I want him to, because people always tell me what they can't do or why they, people overcome. It's amazing. His story, Todd mentioned it earlier, what he's overcome to decide that he wanted to do something special in this industry. So here, if you're here for a part-time income, that's not what Stephane's about. He's a guy that's changing his life and a legacy for the years to come, because he has built an unbelievable business. And not only that, he's willing to help everybody. He's such a great person. So Stephane, I know you're with us. If you can unmute yourself. And
I am.
We definitely want to make sure that you're with us, and we got to make sure this is getting recorded. So I'm double checking it is. So
all right.
Happy with us this morning. So thanks for being here.
Hey, it's my pleasure.
I do want you to start with telling us your story. Because when I met you, you were, you really weren't blowing it up yet. You were working, you had a business started, but you weren't blowing it up. And you were looking for tidbits from everybody. I remember meeting you, and I believe it was in Park City when the Slenderize brand was being introduced. I believe that was the first time that you and I met. And obviously we've seen each other at events since then and talked many times. But why don't you just kind of start from why you got in the industry and what happened? And I think your story is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and well, thank you for having me. It's always good to share with everybody and help each other. That's kind of the culture we created here at ARIIX, and I just really love. And I remember when I joined, in 2011, the thing is, I didn't know, it would be a great company and all of that, but now I can say we planted our flag and this is our home. That's how we feel. It's home. So, so personally, I was a teenager when my dad gave me a book on personal development, and it was about the power of your subconscious mind. I was 16 years old. I read that book. It took me a year to read the book. I hated to read. But by the end, I was reading faster and faster. And then finally, I finished the book, and for me, it was a big revelation, because for the first time in my life, as a introvert, little bit of a shy guy, I didn't see a lot of possibilities for me. I just, I was young. I didn't know what I was going to do in my life. And so after I read that book, I saw all the potential, all the things we can accomplish. So there was no limit. And there was one thing I knew that I wanted to do I wanted to become successful. I wanted to be proud of myself. But here's one thing that happened. I was in school, and the teacher gave us an aptitude test, and it gives us an idea of the kind of careers that we should pursue in life. And so I passed the test, get the results, and I look at the right side column because it showed the average income of those different, jobs. And I knew I wanted to make a lot of money because I wanted to travel. I wanted to do all kinds of things. And so I look, and the highest income was plumber. Now, I don't have anything against plumbers, but that was not my ambition at all to become a plumber. And that day turned my life around, because I realized for the first time in my life that the school system and all of what was happening there was all geared towards getting us in a direction that, a test would tell us what we would be good at in life. No way. So I said, okay, I'm going to become successful, and I'm going to come back, and I'm going to teach people how to succeed in life. And so then about 2 years, 3 years passed, and my father was drawing circles on a piece of paper, and because he had been in Amway, but he was talking to my two of my aunts, and they were asking him questions, and he was not in Amway at the time, but he had an idea of creating an MLM company. And so I passed behind them. I remember it was in the kitchen, and I passed behind, and I see those circles, and I'm intrigued. So when they left, I asked my father what it was all about. And he said, Well, this is like the concept of, you know, MLM that we know it. And I'm sure all of you have seen those circles one day and you got quite excited when you see the multiplication. And I said, that's it. That's what I want to do, because what that described to me was a concept where my success was dependent on the number of people I helped become successful. And for me, it kind of all aligned with my mission of, you know, using our full potential and helping others in the process. And I didn't have to become successful to then come back and teach people. I could do it with them. So it made so much sense. I had a hard time sleeping at night. And my father, his idea was that we would create, like today would be a Costco, right? You would have these big warehouses all around the country and people would come. And so instead of, because at the time in Amway, you had to stock product in your, you know, house, and people would come pick up the products and deliver and all of that. So he says, we're going to have a big warehouse so people don't have to bother with that. And they're going to come pick their products and leave. So there was a person here in the small village where I live. He had a big warehouse behind his bakery. And we asked him, could we use your warehouse? And we explained what we would do. And he says, well, could I give you a percentage of my sales in the front in my bakery for people who come here? And then I thought, wow, if he's willing to give a percentage of his sales, that means other merchants could do the same, like other stores. And so then we wouldn't have to have warehouses. We could just deal with existing local merchants. And I came up with this idea, and you know how it is, right? When you set your mind to something, and especially when you're young and you're innocent, you think anything you can think of is going to materialize. Well, that's the way I was behaving. That's the way I was thinking. And guess what? It worked, because in that moment, I decided, okay, I'm going to create my own MLM company, and I'm going to have I need to figure out how to collect all the money from all these stores around the country, around the world. And how do I do this? It needs to be electronic, because I can't be running after all the stores for them to send me their commissions, like their percentage. And so I thought, well, they already have systems in place where we can transact transactions. They already pass MasterCard, Visa, and they collect a percentage, right? The bank collects a percentage of all the sales. And I thought, why not make an agreement with them and say, hey, you collect your percentage, but collect another one for us when we make an agreement with the bank. So who here would think that that's a great idea? You would go walk to a bank, the National Bank of Canada or any bank, and go and make an agreement with their credit card supplier. This is too big. Who's gonna do that? And a bank joining an MLM company? Come on. You know, in those days, it was like pyramid things, you know? And so, so of course, you're a young kid. You've got so much potential. You can see anything is going to happen. So my father was the first one to tell me, well, Stephane, you know, a bank, I mean, come on, you know, this is a little bit, you know, I'm not sure the bank would. I said, you know, you're the one who told me anything you can think about, you can make it happen. And he thought, oh my gosh. So finally, we went to bank. I was 19 years old, and I came out of there with an agreement. It was the first co-branded card with MasterCard International and the National Bank of Canada. And we modified their computer system, 9 months, programmers working on it. I had to spend $100,000, which I didn't have $100,000, but again, we figure out stuff along the way, right? You just set your mind to something, you go into action and you believe it and you make it happen. And so I came up with my own credit card, and I could show it to you if you guys want to see it, but that's what we had. So we had that credit card, and we opened the market. So we built 11,000 people who had the card. We were recruiting more people than stores. It was just crazy. Now, it all looks good, but I'm giving you like a little bit behind the scene of what my journey was. But the thing is, you know, the margins were so small. It was tiny. There was no markup. So finally, I ended up like a couple years later to basically close that company. All right. And I discovered along the way that my passion was not on the corporate side of running this big company with all the employees I had and all the paperwork and everything. I was not enjoying what I was doing. What I was enjoying was working with people in the field. So I quit that company. I closed it. and I joined Excel Communication. Now I did that for about 3 months before they were bought by Teleglobe. And so then they shut down the MLM and I was out of business again. So then I joined another company, which was Synergy Worldwide. And they were promising, we're going to open Canada. We're going to open Canada. I didn't speak English at the time. Okay. So I was trying to figure out how do I build elsewhere while I'm waiting. And so I waited like over a year. I think it was 2 years, like trying to learn English. And it was like awful. It didn't work for quite some time. So finally I quit that company and then I joined Body Extreme. Now I started to build Body Extreme, like huge momentum. We were like, it was one of those things that you see sometimes come in the market, like big wave, like tons of people joining. It's almost like a scam, right? And so that was happening. So the company shut down. I had a huge team. Company shuts down and start again. Now I'm telling you this, but this has been going on for about 15 years. Okay, 15 years of up and down and up and down and up and down, and each time you go up, but not as high as the previous time, right? And then go up again, but your enthusiasm is up, not a 10, maybe it's an 8, and then next time it's a 6, next time it's a 4. And so then you start to lose confidence in yourself, in your ability to do it. You start to think, well, are those things really work? Like, I'm looking at the big leaders go on stage and some of them have been in the company for 6 months and I just hate those people, right? And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been in it for so many years. How is it gonna, how am I gonna make this work? And then you start to transpose your belief into the people you will bring in, because you think, wow, if I sponsor someone and it takes them 10, 15 years like me, how am I going to build a big network? So you doubt from every single aspect. Every time you try to do something like approach people, recruit, whatever, you're doing it, but with hesitation, with doubts. And so I sunk into that hole to a point where I was totally like helpless. I didn't know like if I was going to be really successful in this business. And that's when I had my own MLM company, I had hired a guy called Randy Gage. And I had a translator come with me because I didn't speak English, of course, at the time. And he invited me to an event in California. That was in 2001. He invited me to an event. I said, Randy, I don't even speak English, right? I'm going to go to the event. I'm not going to understand a thing. And he says, you need to be there. If you want to build this big company, you need to be there. So I flew over there. I arrive at the airport and I have a paper that shows the address of the hotel. So I found a taxi and I get to the guy and I show him where I'm going because I can't speak the language. So I show him and he understood, okay, I need to take him to that hotel. So I got to their hotel and that's where I met Tim Sales for the first time. And so then I was listening to him. I didn't understand quite everything he was talking about. But the thing is, it made like, I could see this guy was very logical. It was like step by step. And so when I came back home and I had actually his email address, I figured out how to get his email address. So for the next couple of years, as I was trying to build in Synergy and in other companies, then I was emailing him all the time. And I figured like I was writing something and getting someone to correct it and trying to just stay in touch. He would never answer. And I figured one day I sent him an email and he replied back. And I saw that, okay, I analyzed all my emails trying to figure out why did he answer this one opposed to the other ones. And I saw it was just one line, like just no paragraphs, like no big thing, just one line. And he answered. And I said, okay, that's the trick. I can't ask him too much. I can't talk too much. I got to be right to the point. So he answered back. And next thing you know is, we're exchanging a little bit of information. And then on one day when I decided, okay, I'm done with this thing. I'm not with any company. And so I reached out to Tim, and in my broken English at the time, because I had studied his material over and over and over. And my wife was tired of listening to Tim Sales in the car, in the house, everywhere Tim Sales was, he was there. And so, and the way I basically learned to speak English was I would listen to Tim and I would record with a small tape recorder. I would record his audio playing I would pause, like stop, and I would record myself, and then I would listen back to back. And I would say, oh, organization, like that's not the right way to pronounce it. Okay, so I would repeat like how he pronounces things. And that's how I basically learned to speak English, like repeating, rehearsing all the time. And I learned the language of MLM. If you take me outside of MLM, I have a tough time. Like you get me into the ranch or whatever, I don't understand much of what you guys are talking about, especially when I meet Chris and Todd, and oh my gosh, you know, they speak, I have no idea what they're talking about. So that's what I did, is I really learned how to speak, but then I got on Tim's, and that's a lesson for all of you guys, is that it's not that network marketing doesn't work, it's just that either you don't know what to do or how to do it. And if you start to focus on the simple steps, which are how to find prospects, how to invite so that people want to look at information, how to present so people want to join, and how to duplicate, so training and duplication, those are the 4 elements of the business. If you master each one, and sometimes people are like, oh, I want to, you know, do everything real quick. I focused on the first part. I was talking to prospects, but then I couldn't invite. And so I would talk to 10 people. One would say, yeah, maybe I'll take a look. And so I learned professional and inviter. I learned the 10 communication qualities. I knew them by heart. And I practiced, and I spent hours calling leads, like thousands of leads. I spent a lot of money on leads. But the thing is, at the end, I was speaking English, and I mastered the inviting formula. And so because of that, my ratio increased from 1% and 10% to 96%. And I had all the stats, like you can see the thousands of people, how many people I called, how many times I called each one, and the appointments, like the follow-up and everything, like the whole process. I got all the numbers in Excel. And so that's what I would do. And the thing is, at the end, I built up my confidence, right? Because it was just one part I became really good at. And then I was able to point them to information that would be great presentations that would get people interested to join. And so along the way, I would call Tim. I said, oh boy, Tim, you know, I'm able to get all these people looking for information, but nobody joins. And he said, okay, you're done with the invite. You know how to do that. Now we need to work on how to get people enrolled, how to do your follow-up properly. So we focused on that. And it took a little bit of time, but I mastered it. And then I was enrolling like a ton of people. And as a matter of fact, when I joined ARIIX, I was the #1 recruiter in the company in the first year. And that's from a guy who couldn't enroll anyone, like maybe once every 6 months to a year, one person. And now I was the top recruiter. Like, can you believe this is just crazy? So I did that. And then I called Tim and said, oh man, I recruited like all these people. Nobody's doing anything. He said, okay, you're at the last part. You need to master training, duplication. And so now that was my focus. And next thing you know, now you saw, you know, people start to, you know, advance and rank advance and all that. And I remember the first time I got one leader, like this guy joined and he recruited, I think 62 people in his first month, like crazy. And I said, Tim, how do I get another one like that? And he says, how you got the first one? Oh yeah, okay, I gotta go prospecting. And so that has been my journey. And all along this, my wife was just like behind me, supporting, encouraging me. And she was working 2 jobs. At some point, she worked 3 jobs so that I could really work on this thing and make it happen. And then one day, as I was building ARIIX, she fell in love with the company, fell in love with the products, and she came to an event and she started really dive into it. And then one day, you know, the best thing happened is I was able to get her to come out of her job and start to work with me. So now we're a team. We work together. We build around the world. It's like a few minutes ago, we were on a webinar in Asia doing a presentation of the products, and that was Claudia doing that. And so, so that's been in a couple minutes the whole story. And there's all kinds of lessons through that. But hey, if you have questions and want to, you know, ask me more, I can share definitely more. How's that so far?
That's exciting. I mean, I know Todd's got some questions as well, but Stephane, I mean, And now, of course, that this is your main success. I did not know you were in Excel Communications. I was not aware of that. That was one of your first companies. I was familiar with that company. I wasn't a part of it, but I was certainly familiar with it.
Well, I was with New Skin because when I reached out to Tim and I said, Tim, I'm not with any company right now. I want to join you in your downline. And I don't know if you really understood what I was asking, but I actually managed to figure out what his ID number was so I could sign up whenever I want, but I at least asked him and I said, don't do presentations or three-way calls for me or any of that because I know you are retired. I just want you to tell me what to do and I'll go do it. And that's where I learned the inviting formula. So I joined him. And in New Skin, I was starting to rank advanced. I had 3 lines of executives. I was working on my 4th, which would bring me to Ruby. So my biggest check in New Skin in a month was a little bit over $3,000. So it was not like I was a big leader, but the one thing happened is when I joined ARIIX, and that's a lesson for all of you. I joined ARIIX, I didn't pretend I was a leader, but everybody I was recruiting and they were coming on board and everybody at ARIIX, they thought I was a leader already because of the way I was behaving. I never said I'm a big shot or whatever. I was talking the language of leaders. Okay, I was acting like a leader. I knew where I was going. I had my goals. We're going to make this thing happen. Watch out, this company is going to be huge. And this was my language. And when people would make excuses, come on. I mean, that's a challenge. We're facing a challenge. It's normal. We're going to have more. And you know what? Let's keep going. There's always going to be challenges. The key is who you want to work your challenges with. And I chose Tim and this executive team at ARIIX, and we're going to figure things out and we're going to move on, right? And so I had that language. So that's the first thing you guys need to know is that you first have to know where you're going and believing in yourself, of course. But the other thing is you need to behave like the person you're aiming to become.
Wow. Todd, you got something there? I know that's what Todd told me.
I do. That's terrible.
My mentor, so.
With some of the questions. I'm trying to keep up with some of the questions I'm seeing in the feed too. Stephane, your story, it's so inspiring. Just for the ones that are joining us that don't really know his whole story, is Stephane spoke no English. He literally learned how to speak English listening to Tim Sells CDs driving down the road. I've been doing this industry for 19 years, and every time I listen to somebody who's successful, I always pick up nuggets. But one nugget I'm going to reemphasize that I just wrote down from Stephane is how he got Tim Sells' attention wasn't by saying more, it was by saying less. So my question to you, Stephane, do you apply that into your recruiting, like on your social media? I know that Stephane is an expert social media recruiter. So take what you said there about how you said less and got more out of it and apply that how you recruit now.
Yes. Oh, that's a great one. So basically I heard many years ago that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth and we should use them in the same proportion, right? And so I remember that my whole year, but for an introvert, it's easy because we don't know what to talk about, right? And so you think, okay, it's easy to let other people talk, but here's the big challenge is when you have a prospect on the phone, you got to say something. You got to guide the conversation. And if you're an introvert, how do you get them to talk more? Like that is hard. So here's what I found, because my father is extrovert. I mean, he can talk to anybody about whatever subject. My mom is introvert. I'm more like my mom. So as I'm like trying to do, and that's the first part, when you're on the phone call with someone or you're in person or on social media typing, what you're doing is you need to greet. And in Tim's word, greeting means to get the other person to talk freely and openly to you. Because if you don't get them to talk freely and openly to you, when you get to try to find out what their goals, ambitions, and things are, to figure out if there's something that you have that you can introduce to them, if they haven't opened up to you, they're never going to tell you the real reasons why they would be, interested in an opportunity or whatever. Like, what's their big goals, ambitions? They're not going to open up. So I had to figure out the way to do the greeting properly. And here's the way I figured out. One day, what happened, and this is my really a big thing, like you guys, you need to make sure you remember this one. So when someone is talking, the first thing, like what you need to do is pick a key word in what they're saying back at you. So if you ask them a question, look at the key word in that phrase, like pick one keyword and ask another question about what they just said. Okay, so let's just do a role play real quick. So Todd, why did you join MLM?
To create extra income so my wife could be a stay-at-home mom and I just not have to starve to death.
A stay-at-home mom. So you guys have children? How many children do you have?
We have 4.
4. Man, you have your hands full, don't you?
All the time. They're older now, but boy, it used to be rough.
They're older. How old are they?
1 out of college, 2 in college, 1 in high school.
Oh my gosh. You must be a proud father.
All dads are.
Okay, so I'll stop here, but do you see that I could go on and on and on with this? And I didn't spend too much time on asking a little bit more about these, what he just shared, but I could have. I just wanted to go fast from one to the next, okay? But you could see that I asked him, why did he start MLM? And he says, because I wanted, my wife to be a stay-at-home. So I picked on the stay-at-home. I could have picked on wife. I could have picked on anything, but I picked on stay-at-home. So stay-at-home because they have kids. Oh, you have kids? Yes, I do. How many kids? So I picked on the kids, right? And so, okay, these are the ages. What can I ask about the ages? How old are they? Oh, they're, older. And so you see that you can pick a keyword in the phrase they give you to ask another question, and you're going to be able to accomplish the greeting. If you guys have read the book, and I did many years ago, it's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. They always talk about being interested instead of being interesting, right? And so the problem today is that people talk, they don't listen. But if you're the person listening to the other person, and the way they're going to know that you're truly listening is by paying attention to what they say and asking them more questions about using the exact same words they just gave you. And when you do that, you're going to have a person that's going to open up, because for the first time in a long time, they didn't have the chance to actually open up and talk freely. Because every time they are in a conversation with someone, the other person is waiting for that silent moment for them to come in and jump in and say something about what they're talking about. Okay? And so that is the reason that the business is a challenge for a lot of people, because they're trying to always talk and talk and talk. So anyway, that's my tip, but use those keywords. You're going to find that it's so easier to have those meaningful conversations, and people will open up easily to you.
I want to ask a question, Stephane.
Stephane,
Go ahead, Todd.
You like Chris? I'm sorry.
I was going to say was that I think one of the things that's most important here is that you stay focused. I mean, even though you didn't have a lot of success early, and I was one of those people as well. I didn't really do well at this early on. And you see these people, I heard you say, I saw these people get up on stage in 6 months and they were doing so great. And yet you didn't have that success. But I'm going to say some of those people you saw on stage have never had the success you've had. So how did you stay focused? What made you keep going when it didn't look like it was succeeding for you? I mean, what was the key there? Because I think that's so important. So many people quit. I mean, I get that's, if there's anything that frustrates me about my business is I see people with potential. I use that word. They have potential, but it don't mean squat unless they follow through. And then you get people. So what made you make it? What would you say was your focus?
Yeah. So of course, goals, you have ambitions, you have goals, but I found that sometimes the goals are interesting, but it's you looking at what will happen if you don't reach the goals. Then you get on panic, and sometimes we're going to take more action on things we fear than things we reach out for. Okay, so I would constantly remind myself of what will my life be if I don't reach my goals. And I was thinking about missing out on the best years of our kids' life, the traveling, like the life we were aiming for. And I said, okay, these are the goals. But then I looked at what if we don't get to travel? What if we miss on the best years of their lives? What if, like, what is going to be our life if we don't do all of those things and don't become the people we want to become? And I was scared to death of that part of my potential life. And because of that, it made me just stay on track. And you know, I was afraid of it. So I was running away from that. And then it pushed me into taking action. So
everybody keeps asking, so how do you duplicate? What is your secret for duplication?
Yeah, definitely. We all know it's simplicity. So what we're going to do is when we get someone started, and I heard that, I don't know, a couple of years ago, they say that initially what you do is you need to have systems in place. All right, because if you have systems in place, people come in and they join and they know, okay, here's how I invite someone. Here's like a little text or text message I can send to someone to invite them. And here's then the next step is the presentation is this one. It's one simple video or it's whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Every system that you guys use, it all works, but it needs to be broken down into simple steps. And so you have systems in place. The next phase is where you teach people skills. Because they need to become skilled at what they do. Because once they've been through their warm market, the people they know, the people they don't know are not forgiving, right? So you need to be skilled at the business. So it would be like how to answer questions, objections, how to invite properly, like the greeting and all of that. So teaching them the skills. And then the next phase is leadership. Now you've got teams in place. You need to manage leadership and all the drama that can happen, you know, things like that. And so those are the three phases. So the key to duplication is the first phase is systems. And so when I became good in MLM, I became good because of the skills, because Tim taught me the inviting formula and all of that. So what I did, and it's default by nature, is the way we succeed, the way it is for us, the key that was our success. That's what we're going to teach others. So for me, it was the skills. And that's where I was sponsoring tons of people, but no duplication. Because every time I would get someone on board, I would focus them on developing their skills. And they would go on forever. Because by the time you learn the inviting formula, the 10 communication qualities, how to handle questions, objections, I mean, it takes a long time and you never feel ready to do it. So then I realized, okay, I need to have systems in place for people who join. They don't necessarily need the skills yet. They need to take action, simple action. Send this text message and you're going to get a reply. So the person is going to say, yeah, show me what you have. Okay. And so if you have that in place, then your people can get started very quickly. They start to get people in the process, start to get people in the pipeline. Then it's easy for you to start to teach them the skills because now they're open. Why? Because they have people in the pipeline. They want to learn the business. They see it's happening. So now you're building them into these people who are skilled. Once they're skilled, they know the business. They can do it and it's happening. They're able to do it. Like it's easy. And then they get to the next phase. So for me, it was those three phases, but the systems in place needed to be there on the front.
Todd?
So Stephane, a couple specific questions. By the way, I want to mention one more really great nugget I love that you said, and that is that that you were perceived as a leader, although you weren't a leader. And I always call that posturing. And I always tell people you don't have to be a know-it-all, but you do have to posture in the conversation. And I've always noticed that about you. I always, even before I knew you personally, I always watch everybody and kind of see how they're acting. And whether you were or not, you always carried yourself as the expert in the room anytime I was around you. But here's the question for you. I just saw John Oakey make a post, and it triggered something that I wanted to make everyone know, and that is that you grew up speaking French in France. You moved to a really remote area in Canada where you really don't have any neighbors or not even really a small town. You live out in the middle of God's country. But living there, the majority of all the South Korean growth is in your business. So the question is congratulations on that. But then the question is, how did you do that? How did you?
Okay, so I think we lost him.
He did. I think he wants to know how you got South Korea going, because we know the
Yeah,
answer
okay.
is.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, I didn't grow up in France. I know there's sometimes this confusion. I'm from Quebec. I was born in Quebec, and in Quebec, people speak French. Okay, because when France was traveling across the ocean and they discovered America, they populated Quebec, and so that's why we have French people from France who moved and basically, took over Canada. And then they were conquered by the British. And so that's why we became a British country. And so that's kind of how it happened. But in Quebec, that's the primary language. We speak French, okay? Now, younger generations, they speak English because of technology, social media, and all of that. But I grew up, like my mom doesn't speak English. Most of my family, they don't speak English. Okay, so how did I end up with South Korea? Yeah, I would like to give you some kind of an exciting thing to look forward to, right? But I really don't. I really don't have anything crazy to tell you about South Korea, because every single one of you will eventually experience this, and it's the power of the fourth generation. And what it is that you will find within your fourth generation your key leaders, the people who will explode your lines. It usually happens within your first 4 generations that you find that person. And to me, that's what happened. I recruited a lady who recruited a guy who recruited a lady who had the contact for South Korea. And that third one here had a lot of clout. She's someone who built like huge organizations in the past. She never earned less than $200,000 a month in MLM. And so she came to ARIIX and she says, I want 2 markets. I want Thailand and South Korea. And ARIIX said, well, we're ready to open another country in Asia. You got to pick one. And she chose South Korea. And that's how it came. Now, here's the thing. That was in August, September of, I think it was 2014, I think it was 2014. So she came on board, and then they were supposed to open South Korea by December of that year. But the process was taking a long time. It was a long process. And it finally opened in May of that following year. And so those 3 people above Korea, they quit. They left. They joined another company. And they gave up their position. They just resonated. They were just frustrated that it was taking all this time. And so next thing that happened is I inherited South Korea. And so I was the only one who flew over there, who just, we just went over there and supported the team and all of that, and showed that, they have an upline and we care about them, and we're there to support. And so the day one, as soon as they open, I asked them, when is your event? When can we come? And they told us, and we went over there. So we've been there 2 or 3 times a year, and ever since, and we just support teams. That's how we ended up with South Korea, 4 generations.
I think that everybody thinks it's going to be magic that you knew somebody. So you didn't know those people. Someone else introduced you to those people. That was a question we had pop up. I knew that was the answer to that. And that's where I think we call it following the trails. And by the way, just so you know, when you said you didn't speak English, neither does Todd and I. We just speak something similar to English. And I'm not sure what language it is. I know you always laugh. Our Southern accents always give you in Southern country. I'm not sure what we have. So here we don't have an accent, see, because we're down south. Anyway, one thing I want to talk about, because everybody is always, they talk about systems. And I mean,
oh, now it's your turn.
Talk about the business up front as well.
Yeah, I missed, Chris, the critical part. You cut for a moment.
I said my internet came out first. My question was, when you got somebody that just come, I have people that got a lot of customers, but they're embarrassed to tell them about the business. Is there some way that I always share the business at the beginning. I don't ever stop, but I'm curious of what your thing is. When somebody becomes a customer, how do you share the business side?
Okay. All right. Good. Glad you repeated 2 or 3 times to help me.
You just did that because it wasn't the internet. It was just you just need to interpret my Southern accent. I know what it is.
Yeah, I picked the first word there, the second and the second time, and then the third, and put it all together, and it made sense.
Okay, that's funny.
And I see some of my Quebec friends nodding. They too were lost. Yeah, so how do you turn customers into reps? That's the question?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Close enough.
Yeah, not all customers. Like we do have customers, and we don't necessarily convert them into reps. They're customers, they're fine. Just like I believe that if I go to that's a bad example, but let's say Subway. Let's say I go to Subway to buy a Subway. I don't necessarily want to buy a franchise, right? So what I'm looking for is if I have a customer, and especially with weight loss, it's a easy way to convert people into the business, because very often people around them ask them what they've done, right? And so from there, they tell me, hey, I'm going to refer you my friend who's, asking me questions about what I've done. And I said, well, I never, told you about this, but maybe we could discuss it. But the thing is, you could actually have your products free at some point. If you have a couple friends that ask you about it, you could get your products free and make some extra money. I don't know if that would be something you'd like to consider. And often they're going to say, well, yeah, how does that work? And so then we introduce them to the business. So from the weight loss side, it's almost like by default. It's going to be a no-brainer. It's going to happen pretty easily. If they're not necessarily a customer from from the weight loss side, what I'll do at some point is I can bring it up. Like I've got some of our customers that we told them, and say, hey, I know you love the product, and I'm sure people that could benefit from them. And the thing is, we have like some systems in place and a business that is quite simple to manage. And if you ever considered making money online with your cell phone and laptop, we can show you how the system works. So I'm trying to sell them more on the system, the methodology, than telling them that they can sell the products. Because a lot of time, those people who are consumers, they don't see themselves being salespeople. Okay, so I'm gonna approach it more from, we've got systems in place in the business model that using your cell phone and your laptop, you can actually build a business with this, and we can show you how we operate, how we do it. And would you like to take a look at it? So that's the way we're going to do this.
One last thing I want you to add, I don't know if Todd's back with us or not, he may have a question, but obviously, I met you 7.5 years ago, and you'd already been with the company since the very early, I guess the very first day. Tell us where you see obviously we all know what's happening to some degree, but for those that have only been in the company for the last year, talk to us about what you've seen and where ARIIX is going. Because I know where it's going, but I wanted to hear from somebody else.
Yeah, and sometimes people say, oh yeah, it's different for you. You were there at the beginning, I said, okay, let's do something. I'm going to give you my catalog I had at the time, and you go try to build a business with that. Right? So that was a different time. So of course, as we're moving forward, things are becoming so much easier, so much simpler. And so I believe there's these different phases in a company's, history. And the first phase is where nothing is proven. It's hard. And if you saw the website we had at the time, it was a black website. We called it the Darth Vader's website. It was all black, and you're selling health and all of that. And so that's what we had. And at that time, we were only selling the vision of where we are going. What is this company going to become? And today it has become what we envisioned at the time. Okay, so that is the first phase, and it's hard. It's like you recruit and you have a lot of people quitting. Okay, and then you move into the second phase, which we are in right now, which is the growth phase, right? Where now you've got proven systems in place. You've got marketing. You look at the products, they look great. They look sharp. They look like first class. So that period of time, you're going to attract a lot of people who have a lot of potential, who have a lot of Like, you know, they can have influence. Some are network marketers that they don't want to join the too early companies because we know that 98% of them are going to be out of business. So they don't want to be part of that, but they don't want to be part of the bigger corporations that have done multi-billions of dollars because they say, you know, we want to be part of the growth. And so now is a time where you're going to see the masses coming and you're going to start, the name is not yet known out there, but it's going to start to become known. You know, in the next, I would say 18 months, 3 years, this is going to change. Like people are going to hear ARIIX. And even through that period of time where they begin to hear ARIIX, if they didn't join at this time now, they're going to join then. Why? Because they keep hearing about it. It's just like you're watching television and you see those commercials and you see it again at like 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Eventually you're like, okay, you know, I want to buy this thing. Okay. So this is kind of where we're going. And we're in that phase now where we're attracting lots of people. There's less attrition because the people who join at the beginning, they're so like, it's so annoying because you have no marketing, you've got nothing. I mean, it's hard. You don't have systems. So it really is for the visionaries. Like you got to go work, recruit. And so now we're in that phase where it's much easier. There's the growth, but it's also, you know, pushing us. And we always talk about the wave. And I say, no, it's not a wave. It's a tsunami that's coming, right? It's just like, you don't have to prepare for the wave. You got to run. You got to run because this thing is coming, guys. Okay. So that's the situation we're in right now. Now, the third phase is where you have an established company. And at that point, you have, I would say, more retention and just try to go and recruit an Amway person. It's hard. It is hard. Why? Because they have like the company's so big, they have all these products, and then they look at the other companies like, yeah, but you don't even have toilet paper. Like that's a big thing these days, right? You don't have these. So that's what's happening is that people, they see all the infrastructure, the markets, they have everything. So they feel they have something so much better than you have. So they want to stay there. Okay. And that's where we're going to be in several years from now. That's where we're going. So we're going to have established networks, and that's where you pass on to other generations, your business. And so we're in the second phase, and that is the exciting phase. This is the momentum phase that everybody talks about. And I know I've been in MLM, you know, if you've been in it for 20 years, you're going to hear, we're just before momentum, the hockey stick, we're right there at the bottom. They all talk about it. But even if they all talk about it, eventually there's one of them that it's true. It is true. You know, and if you look at the facts right now, you look at the numbers, you know that it's not just, you know, trying to tell you like we're in pre-momentum. You're experiencing it right now. You've seen the ARIIX Live and the webinars and how many people joined like a year, 2 years ago compared to right now, and the market's popping and the income increasing. We're in it. It's happening. So that's where we're going. So we're creating our fortune, our legacy, and we're in that time right now. So you guys are going to look back and, you know, to this webinar or this year, and you're going to think, oh my goodness, you know, 2020 was a crazy year. I should have put the pedal to the metal and go like insane. The tsunami was coming and I just let it pass. And now I'm dead in the water, right? So you don't want that. It's time to go and do it.
Todd, you want to add something?
I have one last question for you, Stephane. By the way, we call that tsunami here in the South. Since you, the tsunami. The tsunami.
That's one of the words I need to listen to you, play, record myself, listen back. I still don't get it. You said it. I still can't repeat it. I don't know.
Stephane, if you had me speaking to a group of French people today, I promise you I'd be in real trouble. Your ability is beyond the pale. We are crazy impressed. But I have one last question.
Yes.
When you approach people and then present, are you leading with product and then kind of letting them know there's a business? Are you leading with business and then sharing what products they can choose from? Some combination there? Kind of tell us how you're building.
Okay, there's two things that will happen. Me personally, I'm more on the business side. Okay, that's That's just my preference. And if you go back to my story at the beginning, my passion was to help people succeed. So I joined this business not for the products. I joined for the opportunity. Okay. Now the products change our life. I wouldn't let the product. I see they're an important part of our business. We love them. Our family is on the product, but it was the opportunity that attracted me in the first place. So I'm always going to lead with that. So if I'm talking to someone, I was at the small shop. We were buying fruits and veggies, and I'm taking photos of Claudia, and he's looking at us like, why is he taking all these photos? And we need to fill her Instagram. And so because we have an online business. So I lead with the business. I could have led with, well, we're in a wellness company. We try to buy good food, but I didn't. I led with the online business. Okay. So that's what I do. But the other scenario that I was referring to is if I'm talking with some people and I see that they're talking about, oh, I'm tired, I work all these hours and all of that, then I'll lead with the opportunity. But if they're saying like, I'm tired because, I need to lose some weight, or, I lack energy or whatever, then I'm going to lead with the products. Okay. So obviously, depending on if I have a person in front of me that I see that I have something that can benefit them, I'll lead with what can benefit them. So here we go.
So the third nugget of the day is, and this goes back to Chris's question earlier, is you really are going to get what you're attracting. So maybe one of the reasons Stephane's business is so big is because he's attracting business builders with what he's sharing, where sometimes where people can't get their business to duplicate, it's because what they're sharing is attracting customers. So I've never heard a better analogy ever than sometimes people just want to go buy a Subway sandwich. They don't want to go buy a Subway. And sometimes people don't want to go buy a Subway, and they may not even eat Subway sandwiches. They just want to own the business. So, and then the fourth nugget was he listens. And so there are some people that maybe we just go lead with products. They're the customer, but you're especially in the time frame we're in right now with so many small business owners being really have the noose around their neck financially with the virus slowing their businesses down. There's a huge market of people out there looking for a home-based business and some security. And if all we're talking about is fat loss, they don't even know we're talking to them. So real key nugget, Stephane, you are absolutely amazing. Thank you for giving us your time. Stephane, Chris, none of us are all on the same team. We're all shooting for the Founders Club. So Stephane, we thank you. We'll pay you back anytime you need us. And you're just an amazing guy. You and your whole family.
Thank you for having me on. It's always a pleasure to share with you and work with you. We got a great people in ARIIX. We tend to attract people who are like us, and that's the kind of people we attract at ARIIX. So if you feel that you resonate with with some of us, then know that this is your home. This is your place. You're going to feel comfortable. You're going to love this. So thank you, and look forward to joining you back.
Hey, we're going to invite you down south and let you come stay down in some of this humidity and learn to speak Southern. So we're going to just invite you to spend a few days down here. You and Claudia need to come to either mine or Todd's house and spend a few days.
I understood about half what you said, but I heard that we're welcome to your place. So I got that part.
All right, guys. Stop the recording.